Zora Neale Hurston was an anthropologist and writer during the Harlem Renaissance. The Harlem Renaissance was a time when many African American writers and artists thrived. They offered a new view of the experiences of Black Americans through their art and writing. Zora Neale Hurston was born and raised in the southern part of the United States. She was born in Alabama, but moved to Florida when she was very young. She loved literature, and her quest to understand people, as well as the way cultures develop, led her to New York City, where she studied anthropology at Barnard College, the sister school to Columbia University. At the time Hurston was studying anthropology, the Harlem Renaissance was in full swing, and its center was in Harlem, just 10 blocks north of Barnard. Hurston began writing about African American culture and quickly became a celebrated member of the Harlem Renaissance when her story Spunk was included in the famous collection The New Negro. Hurston's views of life as an African American woman can be seen in her most famous work, the novel Their Eyes Were Watching God. Their Eyes Were Watching God is the story of Janie Crawford, whose life is a quest to find true love. Janie narrates the story of her 3 marriages and her search for love to her friend Phoebe. When Janie is young, her grandmother sets her up with a man named Logan Killicks, who becomes Janie's first husband. Logan treats Janie like a child and expects her to meekly obey him. But Janie is strong-willed and refuses. When Logan threatens to kill Janie, she runs away with Joe Starks, a handsome and charming man. Joe and Janie moved to Eatonville, Florida, which was the first all-black town in America, and the place where Zora Neale Hurston spent most of her childhood. Janie thinks that she might be happy for the first time. But Joe, like Logan, has very rigid definitions of gender roles, and expects Janie to support him and not argue with him. Janie is too outspoken for this, and she and Joe have a rocky relationship. Joe eventually dies, leaving Janie independent. After Joe dies, Janie falls in love with a man named 𝐇𝐮𝐿. They get married and move to the Everglades of Florida. Janie finally has the love that she has longed for, and she and 𝐇𝐮𝐿 are happy, despite the fact that they're both occasionally jealous of each other. When a hurricane hits, though, things take a darker turn. A rabid dog attacks Janie, and when he tries to save her, 𝐇𝐮𝐿 gets bitten by the dog and contracts rabies. As a result, he begins to go mad, and he eventually tries to shoot Janie. She kills him in self-defense and is put on trial for murder. At the trial, 𝐇𝐮𝐿's black male friends show up to condemn Janie, but a group of white women from the town show up to defend her. The all-white jury sets her free, and she returns to Eatonville, where she meets up with her friend Phoebe and tells her life story. Gender roles are a central part in Their Eyes Were Watching God. In the book, women are expected to be good little wives and not speak up or disobey their husbands. They can gain power only through marriage, preferably to a rich and/or powerful man. Men are expected to demonstrate their masculinity by dominating their wives and keeping them in line. Both of these attitudes were common in the time that Hurston was writing. However, Janie does not fit into the role that is given to her as a woman. She is outspoken and headstrong and impetuous. She follows her heart and paves her own way. She is in constant conflict with her first 2 husbands because of this. They want her to fit into their idea of what a good woman is, and she wants to break out of the stereotypes of women. Her relationship with 𝐇𝐮𝐿 finally allows Janie to be herself. Their marriage is tempestuous, full of ups and downs that include jealousy and violence on both sides. But in their union, Janie is free to express all of herself, including the more forceful masculine side. Hurston shows that it is okay to be outspoken and a woman in the way that she shows the differences in Janie's marriages. The relationship that is finally the expression of true love is the one with 𝐇𝐮𝐿, when Janie is able to be more than just a good little woman. One of the things that sets Their Eyes Were Watching God apart from novels by white writers is its treatment of the African American community. At the time, blacks were marginalized in most mainstream novels written by white writers. Hurston offers a full and complex view of Black America at a time when that was rarely seen. She highlights some of the best aspects of the African American community, colorful storytelling and humor through language and play. But Hurston also shows the negative aspects of the Black community, chief among them the racism within the community. She was one of the first writers to discuss the way that African Americans discriminated against those of their own race. Throughout the book, Janie, who is part white, is held up as beautiful and desirable because her skin is so pale. Janie herself looks down on characters whose skin is dark. In the book, Hurston makes it clear that there were aspects of racism prevalent in the African American community at the time. Another way to look at Janie's marriages deals with the fight within the African American community over the best way to seek equality. Some believed that the best way was to ask the powerful white community for more equality, accepting a little at a time. This is similar to Janie's marriage to Logan, in which she is treated as a child and he is seen as the powerful one, offering her small bouts of freedom. Other people believe that the best way to gain equality was to offer less compromise, and instead assert that African Americans were people too and deserved respect. This is mirrored in her relationship to Joe, where she has to fight for her voice and rights. Finally, her marriage to 𝑇𝐿 offers a new alternative route to equality, that of seeking and finding equality through an interchange that strengthens both sides. Janie and 𝑇𝐿 can make each other stronger by complementing each other, not by fighting for power. Zora Neale Hurston was a famous writer in the Harlem Renaissance. Her most famous novel, Their Eyes Were Watching God, is the story of Janie Crawford and her search for true love. Through 3 marriages, Janie discovers not only what true love looks like, but she discovers herself, too. The novel presents new ways of thinking of gender and race roles, which were different from what was expected at the time the book was written.